This right here would have to be one of the best hidden gems in the used market. I'm so surprised we don't see more of these on the roads. Why are people buying a Hilux when you can buy this? Here are the top forward drives that you can buy yourself for 20 to 30K. From the best off-road, or the best value for money, even down to the best touring rig, our experts are going to reveal some of the hidden gems of the used market that no one else has ever shown you. We're down here at Gray's in Brisbane, an auction yard that is full of bargain 4Bs to buy. Now, we're going to run through all these cars we've picked one by one and tell you why we think they're great value.
And we're going to show you exactly what to avoid so you don't end up with a lemon.
The first car we're choosing today is the MQ Triton. This would have to be the newest four-wheel drive on our list today that you can buy. And this thing is going to give you a lot less problems just due to its age and everything having a lot less kilometers. Now, Steve from Pinnacle has one of these as the workshop rig, and he said he can't kill it. These things are insane value for money, and I'm so surprised we don't see more of these on the roads. You can pick one of these up that's under 10 years old with under 100,000 kilometers, and the price is just unreal. It's kind of crazy when you think about it that the competitors with even more kilometers are still $10,000 to $15,000 more. Now, time for a couple of negatives. All cars have them, and this one that I'm about to start with isn't the end of the world, is these turbo manifolds. They're prone to cracking due to being just a little bit thin. Now, they fix this in the later model MQ and MR Tritons, but the early ones do still crack. The bad thing is you can't really see the cracks. All you've got to do is listen for them or look for them. So on startup, see if you can see any soot in the engine bay, and failing that, you've just got to listen for it. You might have a bit of a squeal, like a bit of a boost leak when the engine's cold, or a bit of a ticking when the engine's hot, meaning there is a bit of a leak there. But if you do find a manifold leak on a car you want to buy, it isn't the end of the world. One, because now they make a thicker one that you can replace it with, and two, as you can see, the turbo and manifold are mounted quite high and very easy to work on. One of the things that you do want to have a look for in the book to see if it's done in the servicing is valve adjustments. These have a shim and bucket valve adjustment setup, so it can be a little bit more difficult to do and probably has to be done by a mechanic. Now, you want to make sure that's been done every 30,000 to make sure there's no excessive engine wear. Another thing I'd recommend running your eye over pretty well is the rear section of the chassis. Now, these newer Tritons have a much bigger, more upgraded chassis, but if they do have a long straddle like this or any upgraded suspension, you just want to check around the area between the front and the rear mount of the leaf springs. If they've got upgraded springs, it means there's more pressure. If they've got a long tray, it means there's more pressure. Just check that it's all straight and there's no signs of it bowing out or any cracks. If you are planning on getting one of these and building into a bit of a tourer, the big canopy on the back, or even do a heap of towing, I would recommend a bit of chassis bracing, but as I said, these chassis are a massive upgrade from the last model anyway. Jackie from 360 Gearboxes said, one thing to do if you're test driving a manual is make sure it doesn't pop out of third gear. Also, if it's done a heap of towing, check that 5th and 6th gear synchros are good, because if you are for a rebuild and you need new 5th and 6th gear synchros, the repairs can be up to $5,000, which is a fair chunk of money. Overall, the gearboxes are pretty strong and bulletproof, but overall, if I was picking, I'd definitely pick the auto.
These Tritons are great value as you can pick one up that's only done around 150,000 kilometers for 25,000 or less.
The next car on the list is the ZD Patrol, and I know a lot of you are probably thinking, why is that on the list? Well, both our camera cars have ZD30s under the bonnet, and arguably they're probably two of the most hardest working four-wheel drives in Australia. We've taken them here, there and everywhere all over Australia, and they very rarely let us down. Obviously, the ZD30s do have a bit of a bad name, but that was in the early days when they were a direct injected engine. Now they're a common rail diesel. I tell you what, they are a good thing. They're much more refined, a heap more reliable, and they even put out a bit more power as well. These things have solid axles, so they're great if you want to build a proper off-road platform. Now, a lot of these drive lines you'll see in race cars and buggies that are used for off-road racing, so chances are if you're only setting this up as a tourer, you'll never break anything underneath. There is a couple of options. You can get a manual and you can get an auto. Obviously, the autos still were a little bit behind the time, only being a 4-speed, first gear being rather high, and they're quite clunky, big gaps between the gears. They do get the job done, but if you buy an auto, your towing capacity is robbed straight away. The towing capacity on an auto Patrol is only 2.8 tonne compared to a manual, which is 3.2. So if you're planning on loading it up, I'd probably recommend a manual. I've got a great example here. My sister did a lap of Australia last year. She bought and built a common rail ZD30, rooftop tent, full 12-volt system, mud tyres, winch, bull bar, all those sorts of things, under 25 grand, and did a lap of Australia. And the best part is, even on a 33-inch tyre with a rooftop tent, it was returning fuel figures as low as 10 or 11 litres per 100. Some common problems inside these Series 4 interiors, The later models, 2010 on, they're probably sorted, you won't find these problems, is the dashes can crack or bubble, and the early steering wheels too, they just fell apart. You'll see a lot of them with covers or stitched on covers like this one. So if you see a few things like this, it's not a reason not to buy the vehicle. Just buy the newer parts when you put them in, and this won't happen again. Another thing to look for too, if the vehicle is a little bit hard to start when you first get there, is they've got this fuel primer here, and a lot of people replace them with a non-genuine boat primer. The easiest way to tell if it's genuine or not is aftermarket ones like this are rubber, and the genuine ones are plastic. Generally, when you push them in, they won't pop out straight away. But what people don't know is the genuine ones have a non-return valve, so it makes the vehicle hold its fuel pressure, and it's always easy to start. Another thing too, it's actually quite difficult to see, is over there, the turbo manifolds are known for cracking. It is pretty common on some of the new cars because they are made of material that is too thin. Easy way to see if it's a bit of a leak, start it with the bonnet open and see if you get any soot coming out, or when the vehicle's cold, you might hear a bit of a squealing noise. Luckily though, these turbos and manifolds aren't too hard to work on, so it can easily be replaced, and it's pretty cheap as well. Also, another thing to look out for is the rocker cover on these things actually seals around the injectors and around the back too. It's all one piece, and you can only buy genuine Nissan ones. They commonly leak too and drip down the back of the engine, making you think it's a rear main seal leak when you're looking at the car. So just check around the bottom of the gearbox and see if it goes up the sides. If it goes up the sides, you're probably not up for your rear main seal. It's just a rocker cover, which is actually good news if it's just a rocker cover, because it's much more of an easy job instead of pulling the whole gearbox out.
You can easily find a GU in good condition with over 250,000 kilometers on it for around the $15,000 to $20,000 mark. If you look around the $25,000 to $30,000 price range, you'll easily pick one up with around 100 to maybe 150,000 kilometers on it.
The Prado 150 is one of those cars that no one really talks about, but I reckon it's one of the best buys for under 30K. Yeah, there are a heap of newer ones around these days with a 2.8 litre diesel in them, but if it were me buying it with a 30K budget, I'd definitely pick one of the older 3 litre models. The 3 litre diesel engine in these is the 1KD FTV. Now, I know Jocko had a really good run out of the one he had in his N70, but usually the utes have been worked a lot harder because they're a work vehicle for a tradie, or they've done a heap of heavy work or towing. The good thing about these Prados is they're normally used as maybe a fleet car, a supervisor's car, or just a family car, so the engine hasn't worked as hard. They can carry 150 litres of fuel. They've got a main and a sub tank. There's heaps of aftermarket support available and aftermarket parts too if you do want to mod these things up a little bit. And because they're a Toyota, they do hold their value very well. When it comes to things to look out for, Steve said these things are actually overall pretty easy to work on and very reliable, and parts are readily available because being a Toyota. He reckons that these could be one of the most reliable vehicles we've got on the list today. If it's done over the 150,000 kilometer mark, you're probably going to be up for some injectors, so check through their logbooks and see if they've been done. If not, it's probably about a $2,000 exercise, maybe a little bit more labor to put them in. A lot of people say the injectors are probably the biggest drama on these engines. One thing people don't realize is the pistons can actually be quite weak. So if they've done a lot of work and they don't have any boost or pyro gauges on the inside, they could have piston damage. On startup, check how smoky it is, give it a rev and see if it starts straight away. If it takes longer to start and build up compression, could mean the pistons are a little bit worn. Another thing you want to have a look for when you're looking through the servicing records is if it's had an intake clean. You want these done about 180,000 because it can clog up with carbon and soot. Now, if it hasn't been done, it's not the end of the world because this is a lot cheaper than changing injectors. It's only going to cost you around $500 to $600 to get an intake clean, and the car will run heaps better and feel like it's got a lot more power.
Make sure you check if the Prado has a 5-speed manual gearbox. They've had a lot of problems over the years with difficulty of getting them in gear or them popping out of gear super easy.
Those common problems with the 5-speed are often caused by excessive towing. So what you want to do is check the tow bar condition. If there's extra slop or the tow bar looks really worn out and rusty like this one.
Good versions of the Prado with low kilometers will go for about 40,000. So to get one with under 30,000, it's likely you're going to have to go with one with over the 200,000 kilometer mark. Now, that's not a problem as these Prados are super reliable. You just need to make sure all the big jobs have been done.
A quick little tip though is always keep a little bit of money spare for repairs just in case, because you are buying a used car at the end of the day and you don't know if any problems are going to rear their head after you've bought it. Pinnacle actually reckon in this price bracket of 20 to 30K is where most people actually get burnt on their purchase. Often if people know they're selling their car soon, they do cut corners when they're at the mechanics, and Steve from Pinnacle has backed us on this. He said he's had people in before saying do the service and nothing else, or I'm getting rid of it in 12 months, so don't worry about that. So they reckon most of this could be avoided by a proper pre-purchase inspection. Now, you're probably thinking, buying at auctions, how can I get a pre-purchase inspection? That is why we love buying from Grays, because you can actually come and have a look at the vehicle and start it up before you buy it. So you can send your mechanic down and get him to do a full pre-purchase inspection before you even place a bid.
If you're looking for a proper bargain, don't just look at Marketplace or car sales. Make sure you check out auction houses like Grays. A lot of fleet vehicles only go through Grays and don't use other sellers. Grays are a massive online auction site that also has a bunch of car yards around Australia. Their website makes it super easy to bid on used four-wheel drives, and you can check out the car in person before you even place your bid.
And that basically means on auction day, you can bid with confidence and grab yourself a bargain. Next up is the mighty D-Max. Now, this thing needs no introduction for our channel. We've tested these things harder than anyone else ever has. We've taken to some of the hardest tracks and some of the remote tracks in the country, and I've driven one of these on some of those tracks, and I tell you what, these things are pretty impressive. They are a little bit bare basics, you know, but they've got arguably one of the most reliable engines in the list. And it goes to show too, because we're one of these lined up to film with at Grays, and it sold instantly. So we had to borrow our mates and go and film out bush. The most attractive things about these D-Max would have to be the engine, the old Ford JJ1, probably one of the most reliable 3-litre Commercial engines out there. These things come from a truck heritage, so they're super tough, and with the right maintenance, we've seen these things do more than 700,000 kilometers and still keep going.
One thing you have to look out for, especially in the earlier models of the D-Max, was the turbo. It was super common for them to fail. The best way to fix this is actually replace the faulty turbo with one from a newer model D-Max.
Now, in 2016, they upgraded the gearbox from a 5-speed to a 6-speed. This is arguable if it was an upgrade or not. The 5-speed worked perfect. There was nothing wrong with it, no hunting between gears. The torque converter never slipped. The 6-speed, however, had some dramas with hunting between gears and the torque converter not locking in and slipping a bit too much. Obviously, the 6-speeds can really benefit from a valve body upgrade, but without that, just a bit of tuning that can get the job done. So if you are looking for one and it is still rocking the 5-speed, that's not the end of the world. It could be a good thing. It means it's just going to get the job done and you don't have to straight away start doing upgrades. This is a common problem to look out for that's actually really easy to see. From 2012 to 2019, the D-Maxes and both the Isuzu MUXs started to crack here. This front clip of the body would crack down here, crack there, and sometimes you even have to unstitch the whole front of the car, which is a very costly repair. So if you're looking at one, pop the bonnet. Don't worry if you don't really know what you're looking about, engine or gearbox wise or anything. Just have a look around here and see if there's any unusual cracks. If there is, it could be a reason to walk away from the vehicle, because these things can be very expensive to repair. My mate Steve from Pinnacle said Isuzu doesn't really do much outside the box. They know what works and they stick to it. Yeah, these things might be a little bit more simple, a little bit more noisy, not as comfy on the inside, but you know you got a reliable truck at the end of the day. And a good thing is a lot of these are ex-fleet vehicles. You'll easily be able to pick up one of these things between the 20 to 30K mark from Grays. So do your homework and you might be able to get yourself an absolute bargain that's been maintained really well, and you don't have to do any maintenance, so you've got heaps of cash for some mods. We've got the 105 series Landcruiser now. This fits perfect in our 20 to 30K price bracket. The thing I really like about these 105 series that sets them apart from the 100 series is under here is the solid front diff. Now this makes these things super strong, and it's great if you do want to do some tougher touring or even some tougher tracks on the weekend. Great for articulation and things like that. I had a chat to my mate Steve from Pinnacle, and no surprises there. He's a bit of a Toyota man, but he said this would be his pick if he had to pick a tougher four-wheel drive on the list from today. Now you can either get these in a 6-cylinder petrol or a 6-cylinder diesel. Obviously both great options, both being pretty bulletproof. Steve reckons the 1HZ diesel is perfect if you're just getting into four-wheel driving or mechanics, because they're so simple. You don't have to worry about injector issues like you do with common rail diesels and all that sort of thing. They're super simple, super easy to work on whether you're out bush or you're doing work on it in your driveway. One of the biggest difference between these to the 80 series, apart from the driveline being a bit stronger, is the inside. They are so massive on the inside, super comfy. Look how wide that center console is. Means they're perfect to set up as a big long distance touring vehicle. One thing I do like about the 105 is I reckon they're a little bit of a hidden gem. 80s are real popular, GUs and GQs are real popular, but you don't see heaps of 105s excessively modified, and that is a good thing if you're buying one. It means you can buy one that hasn't been thrashed off road and doesn't have too many mods, so you can mod it how you want it and know you're getting a vehicle in good condition. When it comes to negatives on the 105s, there isn't a heap of negatives. Rust is probably a pretty common one. If you do look up in the roof rails where the roof racks normally mount, there can be a bit of rust there. If you get to it early, it's not the end of the world, but if you're buying one without any roof racks, make sure you lift up the trim and just have a quick little inspection. Obviously the NA diesels, the driveline, the gearbox, transfer case and stuff isn't as strong as the turbo model, so if you do put an aftermarket turbo on, Don't try and make it a race car, just put a little bit of power in it to make a reliable touring, get up hills a bit easier, and you'll have no dramas. I spoke to a fella called Peter from D4D, and he knows everything about Toyota engines, and he said there can be a little bit of a trick when buying a used 105, and that is that everyone claims both the petrol and diesel engines to be absolutely bulletproof. So some maintenance things can be missed just due to that fact. Obviously, some of those things could be the timing belt. Make sure that's been done. Ask the owner or check if there's anything in the service history. Make sure the cooling system has been serviced, and just make sure that the general maintenance and servicing has been done, because if it hasn't, these things may not be as bulletproof as everyone makes them out to be. If I wanted to pick a four-wheel drive just to get into four-wheel driving, I want to do some tough stuff, maybe a bit of touring, wanted something pretty bulletproof, my pick would be a petrol auto 105. Now, obviously they do use a bit more fuel, they're super strong and they'll get the job done, and they're great for a first 4B to try and work out what you sort of want to focus on.
You can pretty easily find a 105 series for under 30k. The tricky part though is finding one with under 250,000 kilometers on the clock. That'll cost extra and require a fair bit of digging. Just like the Prado though, these things are super reliable four-wheel drives, being Toyota tough. Just check that all the right maintenance has been done.
Well, that is our top picks. Let us know in the comments below if you think we've missed any cars or you've got any pointers for buying used. That's all I've got time for today, so I'll see you next time on 4-Wheel Drive 24/7.